Hey there everybody, this is SXE Blues, and after going to my local Barnes & Noble today, I picked up the latest issue of Doctor Who magazine that they had on their shelf, which is actually kind of 2 months, maybe 3 months behind from the current releases over the pond in the UK. This is issue number 432, and they have a sort of opinionated he said, she said, or in this case, he said, debate article about Doctor Who, as it says, replaying past glories as opposed to its rich history being a vital part of its appeal. And what they're basically, the gist is, the debate is, if there's too much reference to the older series of Doctor Who, that could, weigh down the series, whereas there should be more focus on charging through new territory and creating new continuities and monsters and foes and things of that sort, whereas the opposite side of the argument is the more references to the past, the better. And I'm kind of loosely thinking of this podcast as a speaking about Doctor Who complexities as well as continuities, because there's also been more recent, as pointed out by I Just Subscribed Now, friend on YouTube, some British tabloids that are purporting that Doctor Who has become too scary for younger viewers and maybe too complex for casual viewers, and that you have to really be a hardcore Doctor Who fan to get it, like straight out Whovian, to really understand it and pick it apart. And I take issue with that personally, because I don't consider myself a hardcore fan, but I'm very, very enthusiastic about Doctor Who. And with the inauguration of the 2005, not reimagining, but reintroduction of Doctor Who, it awakened in me a lust, so to speak, to find out about the original run series, and have subsequently, since then, collected many original series run DVDs, and going back all the way to the beginning. So, for me personally, to think about it like, the continuity of the show being continually referenced and overplayed, yeah, I do agree that it's somewhat bad that, you want to be able to space up how often the Daleks show up, or the Cybermen, but I definitely also agree with the idea that the more I hear references to the old, and I prefer brief references. I mean, sometimes it's cool to have a monster from the old series show up and be the big bad of the episode, or the two-parter. But for the most part, I enjoy even more so the little things here and there, the little nods, that some of which maybe I wouldn't even pick up on because I haven't seen all of Doctor Who history, but I've seen much of it, and most of it I do pick up on. And I just get a kick out of it, and I don't see, I think the biggest issue is overplaying the continuity of the show, because I've said this before in previous podcasts, it's ever changing. The history and the continuity of Doctor Who is never going to be a straight line, both in Doctor Who universe as well as in our real universe. In the real universe side, as I've said previously, there have been many a director, many a writer, and showrunner and BBC controller. All of these people have their own unique vision that they're bringing to the table, and they're not all going to mesh together, like so many puzzle pieces to create one bold portrait. Yes, it does end up that way, but it's kind of like a collaboration, and all of them have their own particular where they're coming from. So you're never going to get from the beginning of Doctor Who in 1963 to the current series a straight flowing line. There have been many discontinuities, so to speak, and I don't think you need to pin down, let me put it to you this way, the biggest problem lately is how long is the Doctor going to live, because on the one hand he said in the TV movie that he only has 13 regenerations. We've also seen, and this is some of the debate that I mentioned in a previous podcast as well, in the Sarah Jane Adventures he mentions he has 530 something. regenerations, and there's the debate about, is it a natural process, or to my thinking, it's more a artificial process that can be, rather than a renewable, already ingrained in a Time Lord system. It's something artificial that can be extended, however many times. But when you talk about the idea of continuity in the show, I think there should be a light continuity. What I mean by that is I like the light references to past adventures and past nods to doctors. Like, I can't remember the exactly specific moment, but there was a point where I think the 10th Doctor says, reverse the polarity or something like that in one of his episodes, and it calls back immediately to John Pertwee's era, where that was a common thing that he said. And there are other things like that. There are references to past monsters. If I didn't mention it already, the Macra show up in, I believe it's the second or third episode of Tennant's 10th Doctor's Adventures with Rose in New York. And the Macra I was not familiar with. I had to read a little bit more about them in Doctor Who magazine and online to get a little more familiar with the fact that they had a history with the show. But when I found that out, I thought that was kind of cool. They were just sort of in cameo format, and I like that. I like light touches on the history of the show. I don't think you have to bog it down with the Daleks constantly over and over again, as much as I enjoy them. And I was, I'm in the, I guess, minority of people who actually kind of dug the, as they're called, Rainbow or Power Ranger Daleks. I just thought they were cool looking. But I like Daleks in general, so, even as I've said somewhere else previously, even when it's a bad episode featuring the Daleks, I still enjoy it because I get a kick out of the Daleks. That's all there is to it. What I think about the continuity and the complexities, I think the whole complexity argument is, to a degree, I can understand where it's coming from. But I think the people that are worried about the complexities really haven't sat down to watch. And because what you're getting, I think the complexity issue is not so much in the overwhelming writing of the episode. I think it's people want all the answers up front. Whereas Stephen Moffat's very crafty and very, like I've said previously, a master tactician, in that we are going to get little sprinkles here and there through every episode, from the first to the last, where finally little bits and pieces that have flown out at us end up building up to a big reveal. Some people complained that this was a little less than satisfying in the end of Series 5. For me personally, I thought it was pretty cool. I was a little dissatisfied with the seeming, collective, all the bad guys, Cybermen and Daleks that show up toward the end of Series 5. But I thought it was all the timey-wimey things redeemed it for me in the second half of the finale of Series 5, where the Doctor traced back along his timeline, and, we thought it was a editing error where he shows up to see Amy in the Weeping Angels episode, and he's wearing his suit, but previously in the episode he had not been wearing it, suit jacket, and things like that. So we've already seen in the first 3 episodes little things here and there that are building up to something. The little girl regenerating, the strange woman with the eye patch speaking in a manner that leads you to believe that Amy is pregnant and being nursemaided, the idea that what is up with Amy's pregnancy. These are not complexities if you understand going in that it's going to draw out over the series. I think the people worried about the complexities are just basically complaining that they're not getting all the answers up front. And I think it makes for a more interesting story if you're led down a path. You don't want all the answers up front, because then why continue watching? So in that arena, I don't agree about the complexities. as far as it being too scary for younger viewers, I don't really know what to say to that, because I remember being exposed to certain horror elements when I was younger, and yeah, it did freak me out, but there's a certain level of being able to grow up a little bit more and understand a little bit more if you're exposed to it early, because you're in a growing state as you're young, and if you're exposed to it, yeah, it might scare you, but it'll, down the long run, it'll help you better appreciate the realities and the fantasies, if you will, I think, personally. And I think I agree with my friend on YouTube I just subscribed now, who said in one of his videos, where he was, basically directly talking about that they're not giving these children credit. They're not giving their intelligence credit. They're not all going to be whiny little, running away scared and not understanding. There are many children out there that I believe are watching it, and they're as riveted as perhaps their parents or their older siblings are, as much as I would be. So I don't necessarily agree with the purported reports that it's turning viewers away and all of that. But as far as the continuity aspect goes, I think it can bog it down if there's too much replayed over and over and over again. And I would love to see some new territory in Doctor Who explored. I think Amy's pregnancy kind of does that. And even though it's arguable that, does the little girl regenerating signal the return of the Time Lords, and wouldn't that be just going back on continuity? I think it's being done in an effective way where you can say, no, it's not being done in the over reuse of old characters and old aliens and old, enemies and things of that sort. I think if it's done creatively enough and few and far between, little spread, more thinly, I think it can be very, very good to the story and very interesting. So, I'd love to hear some feedback on this from Doctor Who fans, the world abroad, who, what is your take? What do you think? Like, do you, like me, get a kick out of seeing those little references here and there? And how far back do you like those references to go? Maybe you have only watched the new series and that's all you're familiar with, and if they mention the Slovene who appeared in the first series with the first new series with Christopher Eccleston, maybe that's enough for you. Maybe you're an older, longer time viewer, or someone who wasn't alive during those times but has gone back over the DVDs like I have, and maybe you get a kick out of hearing about the Macra, as I talked about, or little things here and there going back to the Fourth Doctor's era and things of that sort. And let me know what your opinions are. What works for you? What makes you want to watch? Do you want there to be completely new ground broken where they don't tromp over the history of Doctor Who and regurgitate it? Or do you, like I said, like those little bits and pieces showing up again and again? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe. If maybe I'll end up doing a reply to the comments. It all depends on how long I'll be able to stay online, because in my previous channel update I mentioned that I'm having some trouble with paying the phone bill, and since I'm a mobile user I may end up getting cut off. But providing that doesn't happen, I would love to hear what my subscribers and casual passers-by have to say about what aspects of Doctor Who they like the most, and whether they think continuity and the complexities are, if they're in favor of it or if they're against it. So be sure to comment, and maybe, like I say, or as I was going to say, I'll eventually do another sort of podcast response to comments. And I love the involvement and the fandom, and sharing the thoughts and ideas that I have with you guys and having you do the same. So until next time, this is SXE Blues signing off.